Welcome. Thank you for joining today. And this is my first time doing a Blue Jeans teaching session, so I would ask that you bear with me if we run into any problems. First, I'd like to ask if you can see the screen I'm sharing that says Organizing Your Research Workflow with Zotero.
Yes, that's
Excellent.
great.
Perfect. And I also want to start off by saying if at any point you would like to go back and look at the slides that we're presenting today, you can follow this link right here, bit.ly/Zotero18. This is actually a slide deck that exists on Google Slides, so it will be there as long as Google lets me keep it there. But that's a different discussion. My name is Dr. Matt Huculak. I am the Digital Scholarship Librarian here at UVic Libraries. And this is actually one of my favorite classes to teach because Zotero has absolutely revolutionized how I write, how I take notes, and how I manage my citations. I first started teaching Zotero as a citation manager, but now I teach it more in terms of managing and organizing your entire research workflow. And today we're going to get into how we can take notes, how we can manage our PDFs, and then how we can cite our sources in our papers automatically using Zotero. And again, since this is my first time, if you could raise your hand and wave if you have any questions, that'd be great. So first, today's workshop assumes that you're an administrator on your computer. We're actually going to be installing two bits of software on our machine. One is the core Zotero standalone software that exists on our own hard drives, as well as a browser button that allows us to automatically import our sources into Zotero. When we install Zotero, it's going to create a new button for you in Microsoft Word or LibreOffice OpenOffice. Those are the two primary systems with which it works. And we're also going to have that functionality in our browser in Firefox or Chrome. Because Safari has recently been updated, it's much more secure. It's basically locked many things out. So there will be different instructions if you do use Safari as your primary browser. So for today, we're just going to be focusing on Firefox and Chrome. Now, I'm going to be going through how to install Zotero step by step. And I just want to say, like with everything in life, we're always going to run into issues. So if you do run into something, just let me know and I can help walk you through what's happening. Because every session, there's always a problem, and there's always a solution to that problem. So just to give you a very brief history of Zotero, it comes from an Albanian word meaning to master. And it has been on the market for quite some time. It's an open source bit of software that's been developed repeatedly through generous funding agencies at George Mason University, funded by the Mellon Foundation. So one of the reasons why I love teaching this bit of software, it's one of those rare instances where open software has been continuously updated to really produce a near perfect bit of software that's really helpful for our research. When it first came out, it was a Firefox plugin, and it existed in the Firefox browser. But a few years ago, they switched to a standalone bit of software that resides on your computer, and it simply just talks to your browser now. So if you've come across it before, you might have encountered it as a Firefox plugin, but today we're going to be working with the actual bit of software on our machines. Now, one of the reasons why I think Zotero is so important for our research is in my own life, when I was a postdoc here at the University of Victoria, I experienced this 6-month-long writer's block that was really affecting me, and I would put on my best Charlie Brown attitude and mope along the hallways in the English department because the words just weren't coming. And I happened to be walking by a colleague's office one day, a medievalist, and he just asked, well, what's wrong with you? And I said, I can't write. And he said, well, are you using your inventory? I said, what are you talking about, Alan? What is this inventory thing? And he said, and mind you, this is a Western medievalist approach to the world. He says nothing can be created ex nihilo. Only a god figure can create something from nothing. But for the rest of us mere mortals, we have to rely on inventio, or this idea of invention, or more precisely, inventory. And he really brought to the fore for me that in order to write, we must read, because reading is a part of that conversation through which we converse with other aspects of academia, and citation is a way of carrying on that conversation. So, oddly enough, I went back to my office, started reading a book, and things just started flowing. So I love telling that story because it worked for me. I can't promise it will work for everyone, but it did work for me. But what is this idea of mastery of sources that we encounter now in the 21st century research environment? We have email. We have various databases through which we access journals. We have books. We have websites. And now, as you may know, the APA is being revised to include Twitter conversations. So the way through which we communicate ideas is expanding rapidly in multimedia fields, and Zotero has really been thought about and geared to capture those conversations no matter where you might encounter them. And just to bring home this idea of what a citation is, a citation in general is just a source in the world. It could be a journal article, it could be a book, it could be a chapter of the book. However, the style is merely the representation of that source in the world. And we, of course, come across the MLA, the APA, Chicago Manual of Style, numerous, and in fact thousands of professional styles that we now have to encounter, particularly for those of us working in interdisciplinary environments. So, for example, I might write a journal article for the MLA, but because a lot of my work is interdisciplinary, I might then again submit that paper to a journal that requires an APA formatting. Now, in the old days, and I am old enough now to keep saying in the old days, I did use a card catalog when I first went to university. You had to manually go through your paper and change every source to represent that particular citation style. Well, the good news with Zotero is if you use Zotero through your writing process, you can now change your citation style with the click of a button. So you can move between various styles with little problem. The other aspect of Zotero being stored on your computer is this idea of personal data governance. So if you are using community-based data, sensitive data, it resides on your machine, and if your machine is secure, encrypted, you are taking better care of your data. If it's merely being sent up into a cloud, or as librarians say, the cloud is nothing more than someone else's computer. So Zotero is good for this idea of creating an inventory, but also taking control over your data. So let's begin. What we're going to do now over the next few minutes is actually install the software that's going to help us use Zotero to its full effect. And so I'm going to switch screens here, and I'm going to go to my browser. Can you all see this screen? I've gone to Zotero.org. That's Zotero.org, and you'll come to the main splash page. And you'll notice that you do have the option of logging in. We're not going to do that. I just want to point out that it does exist. You can create a free Zotero account, and what this allows you to do, if you want to store your data on the cloud, you're allowed to store a certain amount of data for free, and it syncs to the cloud and it syncs to your other computers running Zotero. The other aspect that I found useful of having a Zotero account is you can create shared group libraries, and you can only do this online. So if you do want to create and write a paper as a collaborative group, you would want to use the cloud service so that you're all using the same synced folder of sources. We'll get into that a little bit later towards the end. So the first thing we want to do is click on the big button that says download. And that's going to bring us to our download page. And I just want you to notice here, there are three main areas and things to download. Now, because I'm on a Mac, you're going to see Zotero 5.0 for Mac on my screen. It might say Zotero for Windows for you. I also happen to be using Chrome, so you're going to see Zotero connector for Chrome. That's only because I'm using Chrome and Zotero's website knows this, so you might see something different. So the first thing I want you to do is actually download Zotero 5.0. And this is going to take a few seconds to a few minutes, depending on your connection. And you're going to install that on your machine. Lesson 1 of giving a Blue Jeans presentation is turn off the ringer on your phone, I've learned. So as this opens, I'm then going to install it on my machine. Now, because I already have Zotero installed on my Mac, I don't have to go through that process. But I'm going to drag this over. You should see a little app that you can drag into your applications folder if you're on a Mac. And if you're on a Windows, it's going to go through that install process. So I'm just going to assume that you've been able to install Zotero using that methodology. It's very important at this point to close out your installation window, because the reason being is if we attempt to open up Zotero from the icon in that installation file, everything else we do isn't going to work properly. So we want to make sure that we install it into our proper applications folder, and then we're going to open it from the applications folder. But the other thing I want to do while I'm here is install the Zotero connector for my browser. And in this case, it's Zotero for Chrome. And it's going to bring me to the Chrome web store. And you're going to see a green button up here that says something along the lines of install. But because, again, I'm an avid Zotero user, I already have it installed. So you're going to click that. It's going to give you a countdown, and it's going to ask you if you're absolutely sure you want to add this to Chrome. And I promise you it is worth it, so please do add it to Chrome. Once you do, up in the top right-hand corner, you're going to see a new icon in your menu bar. And if I hover over that icon, you can see it says Save to Zotero. Now, we're going to do this live using the library's website, but I just want you to notice where this new icon is going to live. If you're using Safari, it could be on the left of your path bar here, or on the right, but you should notice something that looks like a new icon in your screen. So I'm going to go back to Zotero.org, and the last thing we're going to do on this page is go to plugins. Some of you might only see this top level part here, so just scroll down the page and you're going to see something that's called plugins. And we're going to click Browse Plugins. And here, the first plugin that we see is called Zotfile. And we're going to click on Zotfile. But before we download this, what I want to let you know is that Zotfile is what really makes Zotero powerful. Zotero on its own is a wonderful citation manager. Zotfile, as a plugin, takes it to the next level since it allows us to manage our attachments to those citations. So for example, many of you may have done research on the library's website and downloaded a PDF. And you may have noticed that PDF has a very strange name. It could just be a series of numbers, 100125.pdf, because in the database from which you downloaded that PDF, that's the way they named it. However, it's not very human readable. We might want to read that PDF title as the author's last name and the title of the actual article. So what Zotfile does is it goes into the title XML tag in the PDF document and renames your file as the title of the PDF. And you have control over what it does name it. You can have it name it by year and title or author year title. That's up to you, but that's one of the first things it does as a PDF is imported into Zotero. The other thing it allows you to do, which we'll do, is it allows you to annotate your text searchable PDFs. And what I mean by text searchable PDF is sometimes you may download a PDF and you try to hover over the text, but it won't let you. And that's because it's an image-based PDF. It's just a picture of a page. But many PDFs now actually have the page image and then the text underneath it, so you can actually highlight the text or extract it for your notes. Well, if you do this using Zotfile and highlight it, you can extract every annotation you've done in that PDF, and it appears as a note in Zotero for you. This is quite powerful because if you read a lot of PDFs for your work, and then you decide to write an article or write a paper for your class, you don't want to necessarily have to go through and reread every PDF that you've read. Rather, you can open up your Zotero citation, look at the note associated with it, and see everything right there on one screen what you found to be important. It also makes writing a bit easier because then you can just copy and paste the text from that note. So I'm going to show you how to do that too. So just a quick take here. Has everyone been able to successfully download and install Zotero on your machine? I'm going to assume yes. I see some thumbs up. So now what I'm going to do is open up Zotero on my computer so you can see what it looks like. Now, yours is not going to look like this. I've been using this for years, so I have quite a few articles in here. Hopefully nothing too embarrassing since this is being recorded. But you can see up here in the left-hand corner something called My Library. I'm going to ignore group libraries for now, but this is what I was talking about before. You'll see two little people here. These are all the shared folders that I've created with other colleagues around the world. So these are actually being synced online, but you won't have any for now because we're just getting started. You might see just My Library. So the first thing I want you to do is click on this little file folder here with the green plus button. It says New Collection. If we click New Collection, we get this window, and let's name it Zotero Test, and hit OK. And you'll see we now have a new folder, or what Zotero calls a collection, here in our list of things. And you can have as many folders as you like. In fact, you can even have subfolders. I've gone 2 down. I don't know how many subfolders you can go, but anything more than 2 for me, I start getting confused. So in Zotero Test, you can see it's highlighted in blue here, and you'll see it's empty because we've actually not put a single thing in this folder yet. Everything that I own is in my library. Now, if I were to highlight an article in my library and hit delete, it's going to move it to trash. I don't want to do that because this is where every single article I've collected resides. However, if I move this particular article by dragging and dropping into my folder called Zotero Test, and I then click Zotero Test, you can now see it's here. And I think this is a good time just to stop and give you a general landscape view of what Zotero is. You'll notice there are 3 main columns in Zotero. The column on the left is our collection view, and we can have our collections. So for example, when I did my library degree, I created a collection called MLIS, and within that collection, I created a folder for every single class I took. Maybe for that class, I also created folders for my papers for that class. And this allowed me to control my resources, so I was only working with those sources I wanted to work with at that given time. It allowed me to create that folder structure that made sense to me. Now, if we go back to Zotero Test, and I go up here and I click delete, it asks if I want to remove it from my collection. Now, this is different from my library. I can delete it from my collection, but it will still exist in my library. So that's the difference between deleting something in a collection folder and deleting something in your library folder. You'll definitely want to make sure that you want to delete it for real if you're in my library. But if you do accidentally delete it, it still will be here in the trash and you'll be able to recover it that way. This central column of Zotero is where your citations actually live. So you can see here's a list of every citation I've imported to the system, and I can sort it by title, date added, creator, publication, where I got it from. I can edit this list by clicking on this little icon over here, and I can also arrange things by attachments, notes, its date, etc. But this is what works for me right now, and you can see I have the title, the date I added it to my library, the author of that article or source, as well as the publication from which it came. Now our final column is one of the most useful columns, and this is our info column. This is what allows me to see what type of item type this particular source is. So you can see here it's a journal article. Here's its title, here's the author, its abstract, etc. If I need to edit any of this, I just click on the item and I have a drop down to change what type of item type this is. If I need to change the title, you can see a text box appears that I can delete and change. I can also add authors or editors. But one thing I wanted to point out here is I actually didn't type all of this out. I used my browser importer, and because a librarian or archivist entered this information for me on my library's website, all of this was pulled in with the Zotero importer. I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. Up here, you have a search bar. So if you just remember a term you're looking for or a keyword, you can type it in here. I'm going to type in education. I don't study education, but here's everything that has the word education in it in my library. And over here, I can create a new source by hand, or a new note, or a new attachment. So I rarely use this bar, but it is here if you need it. The other thing I want you to notice is that when I highlight over a source, and even when I don't highlight over a source, you can see little gray triangles on the left of the citation. And what this means is, in the language of Zotero, there's something attached to the citation. So if I click on that arrow, it becomes a down arrow, and underneath you can see I have extracted annotations as well as the PDF. And this is very important to understand in Zotero. The top level item is always the citation. The logic of Zotero states that in order to have an item, it must be a citation. So, a PDF is attached to its citation. The notes for that PDF is attached to the citation. Sometimes people ask me, well, can I just drag my PDFs into Zotero? Well, technically you can, but it won't be that useful because it's really the citation that's useful to you. And it's useful if the PDF is attached to the citation because it's the citation that you're going to be using when you're writing your papers. I hope that makes sense to everyone and that I've explained that properly. So, before we actually import something to the library, we have to go through the process of installing Zotfile. So I'm going to go back to the web, and we're going to click Download Zotfile. And I have my browser set up so that everything I download from the web goes directly into my Downloads folder. And I hope you can see this, but down here you can see Zotfile 5.010.xpi. That's the file type that we're going to be using. Now it's very important you don't double-click that file. So in order to install this, we're going to need to go back into Zotero, the application that we've installed on our machine. So to make sure we're doing this right, let's go into our Applications folder. And I'm going to download or go down to where Zotero is located, Z, and then I'm going to open it. So I know I've actually opened the installed file on my system. The next thing we're going to do is go to Tools. And from Tools, we're going to go down to Install Browser Connector. Oh, no, sorry, I completely lied to you. We are going to go to Add-ons. We've already got our browser connector installed, most likely, so we're going to go to Add-ons, and this new window appears. And you can see I have quite a few add-ons, including Zotfile. But for you to install the add-on, we're going to move over to this gear icon in the top right-hand corner of this new window. And we're going to install add-on from File. And a new window is going to appear. And it's in this window that we can sort our files by date added. And you can see at the bottom of my downloads folder, there's now something called Zotfile. And if I double click that, I'm going to get this window that says, install this add-on. Please only install add-ons from people you trust. I do trust this particular person, so I'm going to click install now. And once I install it, we now have to restart our Zotero instance. So you can see a little hyperlink appears that says restart now. I'm going to click that, and Zotero is now going to restart. And here it is, and now I'm actually running Zotfile. So let's put Zotero to use now. Let's go to our browser, and let's go to the University of Victoria's library website. Now you can go to whatever library website you prefer to go to, but since I'm at the University of Victoria, I'm going to go to our library. And you can see here, on the main page, we have this search bar, and we call this Summon. This is one of our finding aids. And I'm doing some research right now on lending libraries in Europe. So I'm going to type in those keywords and see what's returned in Summon. And you can see here that I have an article, Europe des droits de prêt en bibliothèque. So this is an article about the rights of people to borrow books in Europe. And it shows me that it's just a citation. There's no actual journal article here. But I want to show you how this works. If I click on this, I'm brought to the page in our finding aid. It's a ProQuest resource. And you'll notice that that little icon in my browser is now highlighted. And if I click that, it's now going to save this citation to my Zotero collection. And you might see a little warning down here that says no DOI was found. I won't get into what DOIs are, but I do have another extension in my Zotero that automatically tries to find DOIs whenever I download an article. So if I go back here, you can see here it is. Here's the source we just downloaded. Whoops. If I double click on it, it brings me to the web page from which I got it. But we don't want to go there. What I want to point out is here's all the information that it's brought in to Zotero. This is indeed a journal article. This is indeed the title. These are indeed the authors. All of this information is correct. And the reason why I want to check this is because if I check this information now, I don't have to worry about it again. So I recommend that as soon as you bring something into your library, that you check this information to make sure it's good, because then you can just forget about verifying that information in the future because you've already done it. So I'm going to go back to the browser. And I'm going to go back. What I really want to find is an article I can download. So here is an article called Seminar on Interlibrary Lending in Western Europe, a Report. And I can see that its full text is available online. I'm interested in this. I'm going to click this. And it's from Emerald Insight. Here's the abstract. It looks good. Yes, I definitely want to add this to my library. So I'm going to click my Zotero import button again. And because the PDF is not linked, it's not going to download automatically. So now I get to show you how to manually attach a PDF to a citation. I can see that if I click this here, it's going to bring me to the PDF. and I'm going to download this to my machine. Save as. I just right-clicked, Save As. And notice that file name, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, so I'm going to save that to my Downloads folder. I'm going to go to Zotero, and when I click on that down arrow, you can see I have my citation, and just pardon me for a second while I verify this information. You can see there actually is a mistake. The librarian forgot to put in the E in Europe. So I'm going to, oh, nope, they did. I just couldn't see it. I asked for forgiveness from the libraries. There that is. Everything else looks good. And over here, when I click on Snapshot, this just takes a snapshot of the web page at the second we downloaded the source, so we have a record of it. But if I right-click on this citation, and I go to Add Attachment, attach a stored copy of a file, I can then navigate to that PDF to attach it to the citation. Now, the reason why I want to create a stored copy of the file is because I can attach a link to the file, but I don't recommend that. Because if you ever change your folder structure, if let's say you link to that file in your Downloads folder, but then move it to another folder like your desktop or in your Documents folder, Zotero will lose it. But if I attach a stored copy, it's actually going to bring it into Zotero for me. And there it is. I'm going to click on that thing with the name that's all numbers. And when I click open, you can see Zotfile has renamed the attachment to the author's last name and the title of the PDF. Now this is very important. Rather than opening the PDF on my hard drive, or sorry, from my Downloads folder, I'm going to double click on this PDF from Zotero. And when I do that, the PDF opens, and from here I can edit it. Now, just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to pretend this line here is one of the most important lines I've read in this article. And I'm going to highlight it using the highlighter function in my reader. And that's created a citation for me. Now this is very important. I'm going to click Save. I'm going to close that out. Now if you're on a PC, some systems then bring up a new window that says, please choose a location for this file. Just click Save and overwrite the existing file. You only need to do this once, but it's a bug with certain Windows systems, and if you do encounter that, just overwrite the file at the precise location it's already trying to save that file. So you might encounter that. Now here's where Zotfile gets really exciting. If I now right-click, sorry, I just installed the new operating system for Mac, and I now need to give permission to Zotero. The joys of being on the cutting edge of technology. When I go back to this PDF, and mind you, I'm not on the citation, I'm actually on the PDF. If I right-click and go to Manage Attachments and Extract Annotations, you can see that Zotfile is now going through that document and looking for annotations. And as soon as it's finished, it's going to create a new note file. And when I click on that note file, you can see here is precisely what I've just highlighted in my document. Now, normally I wouldn't do this step until I've read the entire document so I can extract all annotations at the same time. If I were to add new annotations to this specific PDF, I would have to repeat that process. It's a time-based extraction of annotations, so it won't automatically add new ones were you to continue on. So you can see here I now have the citation and 3 subfiles that are now attached to the citation. Okay, that's the main way you'll use Zotero when you're doing your research is you find a source, you import that source to your library. If you're fortunate enough to have a PDF associated with that source in your library, you can attach it to that source and then manage all of your PDFs from Zotero. That's all good. The manage attachments, manage and extract annotations, that's great. If you wanted to write notes, you can also add notes over here. You can also tag your documents. So rather than relying on librarian subject terms for your articles, you can create your own. And I have this turned off on my machine, but if you create a tag and hit enter, the more tags you have, they'll appear as a tag cloud down here in the bottom left-hand corner. It also allows you to relate articles to other articles. So if this article referenced another article and you wanted to link them, and they were both in your Zotero library, you can create that link connection here. So that's Zotero in a nutshell. But that's not all. Now let's open up Microsoft Word or LibreOffice. Now, for those of you that installed the Microsoft Word plugin, when you open up Word for the first time, you're going to see a new thing up here called Zotero. And for whatever reason, since my update, mine has disappeared. So you're actually going to get to see me reinstall it on my machine. So if you don't see it, this is how you do it. We're going to go to Zotero, Preferences. If you're on a PC, it might be under Edit, but on the Mac it's under Zotero. And under Site, you'll see I can choose many styles, and if the style I need isn't here, so for example, one time I was writing for a French university, I had to find that specific university's style. So I went to get additional styles, and everyone shares their styles when they create them. So you have a list of thousands of styles that you can choose from. So that's there for you. But I'm going to click on word processors. And you can see here, the Microsoft Word add-in is not currently installed. So I'm going to click Install Microsoft Word add-in. Now you can't see this window, but I'm accepting it. And it says installation was successful. Now this is very important. I need to quit Word now and reopen it. And I hope I'm not embarrassed. And I hope that Zotero is here now. And it is. Whew. So, as you can see in Microsoft Word, I have this new window called Zotero. And if I click on it, it gives me a new Zotero menu from which I can choose citations. Now, Zotero has recently also made itself usable in Google Docs. So if you're using Google Docs to write your paper, you're also going to see a new Zotero tab as soon as you install the browser connector for Zotero. So it's useful in Word, it's useful in LibreOffice, and now it's useful in Google Docs for using your citations. So I'm writing a paper, and let's just say I'm actually writing a paper, and Matt Huculak says in his article that Zotero is a great resource. Now you can see I've put in my sentence, I've put in my quotation, I've ended my quotation mark, I've added a space, and now I need to actually add my source. So what I need to do now is in Word, under Zotero, I'm going to go to Add Edit Citation. And when I do, a window is going to appear in my other computer screen, and it's going to ask me, well, what citation style do you want? Well, in libraries, we tend to write in the APA, so I'm going to choose the APA 6th edition, even though the 7th edition is coming out soon. And I want it to be a field, and I want it to automatically update my citations when needed. So, okay. And you'll see a little red box appear, and I can start typing. Now let's just say I said this in the article called Seminar on Interlibrary Lending. I'm going to start typing seminar. And you can see that Zotero knows what's in my library, and it's suggesting one of these titles, and I can see actually it is the second one. So I click it. That's it. And now I'm going to hit enter. And you can see it's entered that citation into my paper as an APA parenthetical source. And the good news is, if I keep doing this throughout my paper, magic starts to happen. Now, what I want to just mention here is you don't want to do this by hand. You actually want to go through the process of adding or editing the citation using this button, because if you do, let's say it's time to create your bibliography. So I'm going to insert page break, and I'm going to call this references. And if I go back to my Zotero tab here and click Add Edit Bibliography, watch what happens. Zotero goes through my library and decides, here's everything I've used. I'm going to put it here. Now, I just want to point out, this is properly formatted in terms of what should appear. But because I didn't take the time to actually rename this Seminar on Interlibrary Lending in Western Europe with proper capitalization, it's just giving me the full cap version of this. So this would actually be technically incorrect in APA. I feel the need to tell you that as a librarian. But to fix that, I would go back, click on the citation, go to Info, and then rewrite this as Seminar on Interlibrary Lending in Europe, in Western Europe, report. So now that's properly inputted into Zotero. I'm going to hit refresh, see if that works. And sure enough, because I hit refresh, it's been fixed in my document as well. So if I had 1,000 citations in my paper, I wouldn't have to do a works cited page for each one of those, or sorry, I wouldn't have to key those in individually. I just hit that button and it automatically inserts into my paper. Now, the final thing I want to show you here is that I talked about interdisciplinarity, that you might want to switch from APA to MLA. To do that, we're going to go to Document Preferences, and you can see APA is selected. I'm going to switch this to the MLA 8th edition. No, that's too similar in terms of parenthetical citation. I'm going to go Chicago. Okay? You can see here I no longer have a parenthetical citation. I have a footnote here, and my reference has changed to Chicago. So again, this becomes very useful if you need to switch styles for any reason. If you follow those directions, Zotero will automatically update them for you. So those are the main ways I use Zotero to manage my workflow. And I'd like to open up things to questions now, if that's appropriate. Or, yes, that's my main presentation.
Thank you so much, Matt. That was wonderful. So I know our new grad students are going to benefit from hearing this sooner rather than later. So I really appreciate it. Does anyone have questions for Matt?
I do have one. Are you able to hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. So looking at where you selected for word processors and where you can select the styles, I'm noticing by selecting styles and you see the full list in the Style Manager, there's an option to get additional styles, which I don't think is necessary. Is there any need to actually load the style into Zotero itself, or are you really just going to use that when you're in Word?
No, the only time you would use add additional styles is if you're really using a citation style that isn't standard in North America. So APA, Chicago, all of those styles that we tend to use the most are already preloaded. It's where you get into sort of the collective consciousness of Zotero that you start to add styles. So for example, I've been talking with a professor in chemistry who has to submit a an INSERC every year, and INSERC requires a specific citation style for that application that everyone in Canada has to use, and it's not intuitive, let's say. So we're now looking at creating a specific Zotero style for that INSERC application, and then if we share it back to the community, anyone applying for that grant will be able to use that style and have it be properly formatted. But for 95% of the world, that wouldn't necessarily be a useful style. So that's where managed styles and additional styles comes in handy. The other example was when I had to use that style from France. At first, I was a bit depressed because I've become so used to using Zotero. I was going to have to do it by hand, and I was like, oh no, I don't want to do that anymore. And so just on a whim, I went to additional styles and typed in that university's name, and sure enough, someone had created that specific style for me. So rather than recreating it, I could just download it and then use it like I would any other style. So that's where Zotero really becomes powerful in terms of the community. It really has been a community initiative, and people giving back whenever a new style is encountered. So eventually, a librarian, if not already, has probably created a new format or style for APA 8. So it isn't in my version of Zotero right now, but if I really needed it today, I would probably be able to go find it and then use it.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So you're showing the downloading to a PDFs to your local computer. I guess would it be possible to then just use, Google, Dropbox, those kind of places for storage as your primary, and then I think you still would choose stored file though for linking. That's what you're recommending?
This is an excellent question, because I've become so reliant on Zotero. If my hard drive were to crash, I would be very sad.
Yeah.
So what I've done is I've reconfigured Zotero so it saves to my Google Drive folder on my personal machine, so it's backed up constantly. And if you'd like, I'll show you how to do that. If you open up Zotero and go to Zotero Preferences, you'll see Advanced on the right-hand side. And under File and Folders, it actually shows you the path to where your Zotero folder is. Now, by default, it's going to be located in Users, your home folder, and then in a folder called Zotero. However, I happen to have my computer set up so that my Documents folder is synced continuously with my Google Drive account. So what I've done is I closed Zotero. I then navigated to my home folder, which on a Mac looks like a little home. This is my primary drive, and I went to the folder that said Zotero, and I simply dragged it to my Google Drive folder. I then reopened Zotero. It said, hey, I can't find a library. And I said, okay, just create a default one for now. And then I went to Advanced, Files and Folders, Choose, and then I navigated to where the new location was and hit OK. And now all of my citations are in that new area that I chose. It's automatically synced to Google Drive, and Zotero knows where to find everything. So that's the solution I came up with that. But as you noted, if you know you're going to keep your Dropbox folder in that location for a long time, that's absolutely okay. You can share a linked file. In fact, there are benefits to this, because if you're like me and you want to sync everything to your online account, for private use across multiple machines, at a certain point, those PDFs are going to add up in terms of size. So if I share all of my citations, I'm never going to run out of free space on my Zotero account because it's just it's pennies, it's nothing. But if I store all of my PDFs on my machine and I'm only syncing my citations, I'll make sure that I won't have a space problem online. But because I do have a space problem, I'm one of those people that pays extra for additional storage from Zotero.
Thank you so much. Any other questions?
I have a quick question. First of all, thank you for the Zot file. That is a game changer.
Ditto.
Yeah. The problem is I don't typically have my PDFs loading into Zotero because that takes up space in my online Zotero account. How do I go from, like, I've got a citation in there with a DOI and everything. Can I do something to go find, I right click and I choose find available PDF, don't I? Sorry.
Zot file becomes even more miraculous. Oh no, I think that's actually baked into Zotero now. And that's why DOIs are so nice and why I added that additional plugin to Zotero about DOIs, because it makes finding things a lot easier if you don't happen to have them.
Okay, I just did that and it worked magically. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Yes. And if you go to the slides that I shared, there's actually pictures that show all of this step by step. But the one thing we missed doing this live is I have a GIF of Captain Picard sipping his tea at the end of everything just because he looks so satisfied. And I always feel so satisfied when I get to share Zotero with everyone.
Well, I can trust you. We're all like sipping tea over here, so thank you.
I'm just curious if there are other plugins that you highly recommend in the ecosystem here.
The only plugins I've used, actually, let's see what I've done here. Tools, add-ons. So there's the Zotero DOI Manager, which becomes quite powerful just because DOI should be standard practice now, and especially if you have a large library or have been using Zotero for some time, even before DOIs were a thing, so to speak. This plugin will search everything and try to find DOIs for stuff, or if in the next couple days a DOI is assigned to one of my sources, Zotero will notice and say, oh, we have a DOI now, I'm going to apply this to your library. So that's good. I do use LibreOffice sometimes, just because some of my collaborators use it, so I like to have it. I don't know why I have Storage Scanner on here, but I'm sure I had a good reason at the time. And then Zot file. So those tend to be my primary ones. I'm of the belief that the fewer plugins, the better. Because if something does stop working, the first thing you have to do is start disabling plugins to see if that's the problem. So I tend to only install the problems that I know I'm going to be using all the time, and these are the 5 that I use all the time.
And just a follow-up, as a librarian, do you recommend the short DOI format or the long? Does it matter?
Imba would actually be the better person to ask there.
Yes.
Ideally, short should be fine,
Okay.
but the long will always be fine,
Okay.
right?
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much. I'm going to sign off. I just had my meeting show up, but you can continue chatting if you'd like. But thank you so much, Matt, and I'll share the video that we use so you can use it again for people who want to connect with you as well.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's very nice to meet all of you. And of course, if you have any questions at any time, please email me. It's on those slides. That's what I'm here for. So
Wonderful. Thank you.
thank you.
That's great. Bye.
So yeah, if anyone does have more questions, I'm more than happy to sit here and help you work through any issues that you might have encountered with the installation.
I think I'm good. I'm going to wade into what you've shown us so far.
Excellent. And actually, I might have a meeting right now, so hold on one second.
Yeah, I think it takes a little bit of time for you to realize how powerful Zotero can be. That first time you create your bibliography, it's pretty magic. And get your tea ready, because it is worthy of just sitting back and watch it all come together. I know when I did my PhD, it was just, there's so much other work to do. That's just busy work. And so if you can use a tool like this to save yourself from all that logistical work. I did it by hand with my master's, and it was a bummer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is there is this, the reason why I love teaching this workshop is there is an audible gasp the first time you do press create bibliography. And I've had people actually tear up because they were like, why hasn't anyone ever told me of this? And it's like, here you go. From now on, you have this for you. And the other great thing is, in terms of creating the inventory, and I don't know about you, Michael, but I lost so much stuff doing everything by hand. Whereas now, since I've started using Zotero, I always know those folders are there waiting for me if I ever need to, teach something I haven't read about in years. Or for my library degree, which was 4 years ago, if someone ever asked me a question about inventories, I just go back to that class, where I had all of those articles on inventorying, and there everything is. So having that instant recall capability, it really does feel like I'm creating something for my lifetime, for my career, that is helpful. So.
Yeah, there's very few programs that I run on my desktop that are always open, and it's one of those very few that's at least open several times per day, if not always. So yeah, I highly recommend it, especially if you're in this for the long game and plan to do more with scholarship, because you will want to be like, oh yeah, I read something 4 years ago, and I know there's a trace of it in my mind, but I want to get at the citation. I just wish the search was a little better, but it's workable.
Yes.
So, well, we won't keep you, Matt, if you have to get off to your meeting. Just say thanks again. And yeah, we really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you. And I look forward to seeing you around campus.
Yeah. Likewise.
Thank you again.
And for those of you who aren't on campus, feel free to email anytime.
Okay, right on. One time I am on campus, I'll drop in and show you how I'm using it with in Atom, the text editor, and BibTeX. And
oh, sweet.
It's
I'd love to see that, actually.
It's kind of fun, yeah.
I want to use it with Scrivener, and I'm guessing you might be using a method that I should be using in Scrivener with the RTF scan.
No, it's not the same as that.
Excellent.